This is like big sister advice from a middle-aged millennial mama of three. Okay, hold on. I'm not middle-aged. I'm in my mid-30s. When I was 23, I knew that I was dealing with an early life crisis after being in corporate life for a few months. And I found that I'd made just this grave mistake. And it just catapulted me into an early life crisis that I had to navigate out of in a very particular time in my life, a particular season that was stressful and left me just asking all the big ethereal questions like, what am I doing here? Why was I born? God, where are you in this? How can I figure out if I'm going to spend my life wasting it away or doing something that I truly feel like I was born to do? And this crisis just left me paralyzed. So today we're going to get into some big sister advice because I want to help you if you're navigating this time in your life where you're questioning everything, every decision you've ever made, and you're on a path right now to trying to launch your life, launch your trajectory for the near future, and you feel like you've made a mistake, or you're on the cusp of feeling like maybe I'm about to make a mistake. So let's jump into this. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show today. My name is Emily. I'm a certified Christian life and business coach, and I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm talking about many different things that bring a lot of passion to me and things that are relatable to the Christian walk, how we navigate this world on this side of heaven. And I would love to get to know you. So make sure to subscribe to this channel. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, so why am I diving into this subject? Because so many of us hear that there is this time in our life where we go through a midlife crisis. And I found that my midlife crisis came at the beginning. It came at the front end of my life. And so that left me with this feeling like I had failed even more before I got started. And it was just a very damaging, traumatic experience. And one that I felt like I was set up for that type of disappointment. And I'll explain why. But basically, a little backstory so you know what I was dealing with or where I was coming from. I went to college. I was going there to get my undergrad degree. And quite frankly, I had an inkling of what I wanted to do with my life. But a rabbit hole, I really think it's crappy that teenagers who are in puberty, getting through puberty, are asked to go and start their life, commit to thousands of dollars in student debt, and grab a degree that they're supposed to utilize for the rest of their foreseeable future in life. It's an absurd notion. Now that I'm on the other side of that, I have just so many different ideas about that and how, in particularly, I'm raising my children for their setup. But that can be for another episode and what I would love to talk about. I am passionate about that. So anyways, I go into undergrad and I had this idea. I was technically initially a biology major because that was like a pre-med route. And you have to talk to school counselors and get on this regimen of classes and credits and all this yada yada. So I was set up as that initially, but quickly I loved biology. My professor wanted me to commit to doing that. And I was in the midst of his class, I decided that I was not going to do pre-med or the pre-med route, and I wanted to switch to business. So I was disillusioned by the medical industry. I had always known I wanted to help people. That has always been the calling on my heart. When I was young and went to a Billy Graham crusade, saw hundreds of thousands of people come to Jesus that night. I've been a Christian my whole life and nearly my whole life. I accepted God into my heart when I was almost 7 years old. And so that is the lens with which I live my life and have led my life. And I knew from a very young age that God was calling me to help thousands of people. And when I say that, it sounds scary. It's troubled me my whole life. I don't know what that means. And I don't know if that will ever come to fruition. Maybe not even when I'm here. I don't even know. But anyways, I knew that helping people is what I was born on this earth to do. So naturally, that seemed like medical. What more could you do for someone than to restore their health, give them a better quality of life, help them in some way to improve their ability to live? And you got to have your health to do that. So initially, I wanted to be a doctor, But that became quickly apparent that I didn't want to once I was in that college experience, mainly because I did not want to go to school for that long. And I felt like the root of a lot of medical teaching was symptom relief. It was not the root cause. And at that time, maybe going back, I wish I would have pursued different avenues possibly of that, because there's a lot of different functional medicine and all different types of avenues I probably could have gone into that would have been more in line with what I was hoping to do for people. But at the time, I just thought, I'm not going to school for 12 years or more. I'm not getting in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And I, quite frankly, was in love and had been with my high school sweetheart. We had dated all through high school and knew that we wanted to get married. And I just didn't want to delay our life. And to me, knowing the type of values that I have and what the type of life I wanted, I knew going to school for 12 years would set me back on personal goals, life goals. And I knew that I also probably wouldn't want to work 100-hour weeks, be on call, and do all that. It didn't fit my values. I'm so thankful for the doctors who are there and doing that. It just didn't fit me personally. And it just became very clear and very apparent. And so I was like, you know what? I want to do business. I've always been interested in business. I've always found it intriguing and been inclined in that respect. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. And even during college, I invented a product that me and my mom took to market and had produced. So like, it was just in my blood that I would love business. And I felt like I could marry those two if I got a degree in healthcare management, because I was like, I knew ultimately I wanted to do nonprofit work. And so I was thinking, okay, I can get the skill set and the knowledge base I need to run an efficient, productive, successful nonprofit organization. And I wanted to be able to marry my love for helping people. Maybe it was creating programs that doctors could utilize to help people in a charitable way. I didn't know, but I just thought I could go this route and it could be a useful skill set. So I went with business, specifically healthcare management, and did all the things. Long story short, landed a corporate job when I got out of school and realized it was not for me. Number one, corporate life is horrendous. You have to be cut from a certain cloth to withstand it. I'm thankful for those. My husband is in corporate life and has been his whole career. I'm thankful for him. I'm thankful for the work that he does and all of that. It just didn't fit who I was. And going back to what I said at the beginning, it's very hard to put the pressure on yourself to commit to a career that you've not done before. And you also are in a different circumstance when you're young. Like it's just different a mental state. And I wish we would go to more like apprenticeship type of environment where people are doing that versus jumping into 4-year colleges. And so I knew that I would not be in corporate life. Like I was not going to do that. And here are the things that I wanted to share with you. This is how I knew what I was doing wasn't a good fit. And this is in my experience with corporate life and corporate work. But these same triggers, if you will, that made me feel like this is not right will probably help you, even if it's not work related. So the first thing was I just did not have a peace. I did not have a peace about being there. Nothing felt right. Like everything felt like a square peg trying to fit in a round hole, as they say. And it was just all day. I felt like I was seeing myself outside of my body doing all these things, but I wasn't clocked in. I was not there mentally. And then it was like, oh, as soon as I left, I'm back to being me. And I just knew that wasn't right. I should not be going every day feeling like I was having to wear a mask and not care about or be who I am at work. Like it didn't make sense to me. It did not fit. And so I was not at peace. The other thing is that nothing felt purposeful. I've worked my whole life. Like as soon as I could work, I worked. I worked in restaurants, worked at daycares. I've worked as soon as I could. So it wasn't an issue of working hard. But I also just didn't see a means to the end in this particular situation. And when you're staring down the barrel of your life, and I'm very much a time-sensitive person, so I consider how much time things take, and it's a blessing and a curse. But I was just like, I can't see myself doing this for 5 years to shake it out and see if this is what I want. I can't waste this time. Like right now, I don't have children. I don't have all the responsibilities yet fully. My parents allowed me to come back home. I was engaged, but I was living with my parents and they're affording me that leg up because I need to get on my feet and I need to get a grip with budgeting and working and all of this stuff. And so, I was like, I don't want to waste this time because right now I can work on just getting the goals that I'm focused on right now. And so it just felt like I had no time to waste in a job that was horrendous. And so it didn't feel right. Nothing felt purposeful. Even seeing the doctors do their work, it just seemed like everyone was disgruntled. No one was there for any joy. It was just a means to an end. They were just there to get their paycheck, doctors included, and they were moving on with their day. Even if they were doing work for someone's health, it just didn't seem like it was anything of substance to them. And I just could not get over that because I'm like, you are committing to do this. Some of those doctors have been there for decades. They just seemed miserable. And I was like, the purpose of this is for no purpose. It felt in my heart like this is for no purpose. And I don't mean that to, everyone can say that's not true because if you are a Christian, you have purpose in everything you do. And I've said that, and I do believe that. So one of the ways that I managed being there for so long, because I was there for about 8 months, was that I just started, once I was recognizing that this didn't have to be my forever, which I'm going to get to in a second, I did start going and saying, okay, how can today just be a day just to show Christ? Like, that's all I'm here to do. Like, job aside, I'm here to show Christ. And that gave me a lot of life to keep showing up to that job until I got a contingency plan in place. So nothing felt purposeful. That was another key indicator that this is not going to work. And the third thing was my boss, who had the dream job that I supposedly wanted and was striving for, was miserable. She was miserable. And her life exemplified like the antithesis of what I would want my life to be like. She was single, never had been married, which that's okay. She never had children. She was not close to her family. She lived alone. She came to work earlier than everyone, left after everyone, and was nitpicky, mean-spirited, and just had nothing of substance. You would try to have a conversation with her, and there was just nothing to talk about. And it just, all of that culminated into me realizing, like, why am I working so hard at something that feels so wrong and doesn't align with anything that I'm hoping to accomplish with my time here? It was just like glaring red flags everywhere for me. And I just knew that I would not be there forever. And that was something that helped me in that time. So what I did about this situation was I prayed, number one. I confided in my fiance and my mom, who I knew loved me and wanted the absolute best for me. So confide in someone if you're walking through something or you're trying to get a grip on this and figure out this situation. Confide in people that really do know you and want the best for you, because letting them know your heart about what you're going through, number one, they can see things that you might not be able to see. They can also point things out. And one thing my mom pointed out to me, which helped me in that moment, was tied to what I just said. She said, you have the power in this situation. You get to quit if you want to. You get to walk in there at any point in time and say, I quit. And understanding that, like, yeah, I did have the power to do that. So many of us walk around feeling like life has to happen to us, instead of making the conscious decision, like, I'm making life happen, because God gave us free will. It does not mean we control. It does not mean we manifest. It does not mean we have this, we're not God. We're not creating things like that. But we have the power, the Holy Spirit within us, to make choices that align with God and what He's convicting in us. And knowing that even if this is uncomfortable, like, is for good, because we're following His lead. And therefore, even if we don't have all the answers, we can still make strong choices. And so I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to rectify having spent 4 years learning this skill set, spending thousands of dollars and trying to get this degree, to then pivot and do something totally different, something I hadn't even thought of. And what was it going to be? And so I felt tremendously at a loss. I felt trapped and at a loss. But when my mom spoke that truth into me, she's like, you're God's child, and God's not going to forsake you. If you feel like He is calling you away from this, you have the authority to leave it. Like, you can leave it aside. I realized that a lot of my struggle was that I was fighting my flesh. In my flesh, I wanted this certain type of job. In my flesh, I wanted to make this certain type of money. In my flesh, I wanted to have this type of career accolade. In my flesh, I didn't want to have wasted 4 years of my life earning a degree that I wasn't going to use. That did not fit in my plan. That felt like I'm a very productive type A person. So you're telling me that my plan wasn't going to plan out? or pan out. And so that was very much upsetting to me. Like I did not want to have to consider that I had wasted 4 years of my life. Now looking back on it, I realized nothing in our life is for waste. God did not call us to waste away. And every experience that we face in life, there's some fruit to harvest from that circumstance. And boy, did I harvest a huge, big piece of fruit, because I learned that number one, my way was not aligned with God's, and that my way did not get to supersede God's ultimate way that he created me. Like I could have my own plans, of course, and my own goals, but if I was not seeking the Lord and I was not going in a direction that he was leading me to, I was going to suffer for that. And I specifically prayed for this position because I just knew it was what I wanted and what was going to be best for me. God answered that prayer. He gave me that job. And it was a terrible match. It's easy to be like, well, God, why would you allow that to happen? He taught me a lot about myself in that circumstance. I learned so much about what I truly do value in life. I learned so much about what I truly feel is success. I learned so much about how I wanted to impact and influence the world that I'm in with the skills God gave me. And I found out very abruptly and quickly, and I'm thankful for that. Like I didn't waste a decade of my life and get passed over for a promotion or whatever the nuance could have been, which would have been more devastating, taken away more of my time and been more tragic story in my eyes. And so I was just trying to navigate my way at the beginning of what was supposed to be like the fun time of my life. I was engaged, I was getting married. We were both working and saving up. We were able to purchase a home in that time, getting married in that time while I was at that job. And I just will never forget, on our honeymoon was crying to my husband, I gotta quit this job. Like we had just started our life together and I was like, I'm quitting my job. Just so you know, I'm quitting my job. And at first he was just like, I could tell he was like, okay. But I told him, I was like, I'm not going to go in there and quit the day I get back, but I'm just letting you know, like, I'm going to start praying. And I was already praying at that point, but I told him, I was like, I'm seeking God. I'm leaning on his authority in my life and what he's guiding me to do. I want you to pray over this specifically. And he had already known rumblings of what I was walking through because I was already confessing to him just what a horrible position I felt I was in. And so he was navigating that with me, but it had all come to a head. And then on my honeymoon, I was like, no, I am done. I'm literally done. I'm not going to be at that job much longer. So I prayed about it. I confided in those closest to me. And then the third thing I did, what I did about it was I developed a contingency plan. So I mentioned this a couple times, but I really got down to the nitty gritty of what it was I felt like the season I was in. And I was praying and I was just journaling and all this stuff. And so I created a contingency plan for when I was going to leave and what I had as a backup and what my plan was with my backup. So what I chose to do was go back to a job I had previously in college. I talked to them. They could hire me full time at that time. I was going to be taking a humongous pay decrease, but I felt like it was worth my sanity because I did have a contingency plan. I knew that I was going to work on my side hustle, that I was going to start dipping my toe in entrepreneurship and what that meant. And that job was a safe place for me to be. It nourished my soul. And God led me to that job. When I went back to that job full time, it built up in me such a spiritual life, mainly because of the people that were there who were Christians and godly women. And it was just an amazing place to heal my wounds and let me lick my wounds that I had from feeling like an utter failure. And I grew so much in that season. And God opened opportunities and doors for me to have the time and the bandwidth and the margin to pursue the things that he was calling me to do, which is manifesting right now in my life as being a mom of 3 who is the primary caregiver of my children, which I never would have wanted to happen any other way. And that's just my own conviction. So I've gotten to be their primary caretaker. I've been able to work with a lot of flexibility from home in the interim in these years. I've been able to launch my own business, start a podcast, do these things, and really lean into who God created me to be and what he has convicted me to spend time doing. So that's what my journeys look like. But I think all of us can relate to this feeling of failure or not feeling lost and not know what to do. And so I just wanted to give you guys some advice and share my story about that because I think the world builds us up to have such rose-colored glasses of what life should be and what it looks like for everyone. And they also try to harness us into this one pathway. And number one, you can do anything that God is calling you to do, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Like, you are unique. What you value is how he created you. So your friend might be the top salesperson or whatever, and you might be more content being a school teacher that gets time off and gets lesser pay, but has a different quality of life in that respect. Everyone has different natures and everyone has different skill sets. And you can try to cover all these intricate parts of who you are up with external things, like external measurements of who you are with job titles, money, things that you have, whatever you're collecting in life. But ultimately, God knows your heart and you know your heart, and you're going, that's why so many people can say money doesn't buy you happiness, because there's so many people that have all this money that they've garnered, but have just such a poor spirit. And vice versa. There's people that have nothing, but are full in spirit, full in life, and nothing can get them down. And then there's people that have a lot of money and are super joyful, and people that are poor and not so happy. There's just so many different walks of life. But I think the main thing that I have learned in my time is just God is bringing you to different circumstances in life for a purpose and a reason. And you have to have enough awareness and presence of mind to pursue what God is calling you to do. You're not going to have all the answers, but it's going to be very apparent when something isn't aligned with who God created you to be or Him. So I found that to be my situation at 23 and graduated and needing to pay my student loans back, getting married, having all these new life responsibilities, and trying to navigate, what does this mean? And did I waste all that time? And so I want to encourage you, if you're in this space, you're not wasting time. You're figuring things out. And that gave me such joy when I allowed God to lead me in that truth, because He told me that none of this is wasted. And it hasn't been. Yeah, I might not have a healthcare management job right now, but I have a lot of nuanced experience from that education, from my internships, from that job that I've been able to apply to this. And I also don't know what's coming my way. I don't know if one day I'm going to get to run a huge nonprofit organization and be able to have the ability to discern and connect with the medical industry to meet the needs of people. I would love that, right? So I don't know what's to come, but I do know that our time, each day that you're giving to be alive and here, is not wasted. But it is our responsibility to take hold of that gift of being alive and being here, to emulate what God has called you to do in this world and to be an example of His love. And we think it's this big burden, but God just wants to know us. He wants to love us. He wants us to be in communion with Him, to have a relationship with Him. And when we do have a relationship with the Lord, which is what I understood was lacking in my life, because I was self-willing everything around me and asking God for things and praying, but I was not allowing Him to guide my choices. I was asking Him to allow the things that I was choosing for myself. And there's a big difference in that. And so even though I'm not doing exactly what I thought I would be doing, I'm much more peaceful, content, joyful, hopeful. And my day, I look forward to every single day. I used to loathe Sunday. I used to hate Sunday. Why? Because I knew I had to go to work the next day for 5 days straight. That's what I was living in. I was crying every weekend, like getting physically sick because I didn't want to go to the office. And I don't really want to share like all the nitty gritties of that business. And that's not for me to share all the nuance of people's personalities I had to deal with. But for myself, I just knew it was not a fit. Like it was not a fit. And I had to come to terms with letting that go. And so you might be in a situation where it's not a fit and you know it. And in those circumstances, be in prayer and don't continually try to fit something into something that's not working, because it's not for you if that's the case. If something is not for you, God is making it clear. And just have an awareness of that and be willing to be uncomfortable, to make choices, and to not have the best plan in place for what's to come next, because it's all going to work out according to His will. You just need to lean on Him, confide in those who you trust, be in prayer, and be willing to sacrifice your own ambition and expectation in order for God to have the ability to step in and help you. And that's been a huge lesson for me as self-control and being in control and micromanaging every detail of my life. It leads to misery. Like, God is for that, and the Holy Spirit is for that. And reorienting your mind to recognize that is going to bring you so much joy, so much clarity, and so much peace that no external factor in your life could impart on you. And so that's what I want to leave you with. That's my big sister advice for today. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, Romans 12:2. And if you like this form of content, let me know. This is a little bit off the cuff and just some nuance, and I'm not going to edit this too much. I just want to let my train of thought go, and I would just love your feedback on that. All right, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye for now.